Hey, so before you watch the rest of this video, I just want to say I am so sorry that this took me so long. I had a lot of issues considering my camera. I had to buy this yesterday. Uh, all this different stuff that just led up to this taking so long, and then there's just two main reasons. The biggest one, I think, was something called intercession, which is something I do at my school where in my specific intercession, we went out on a field trip like every day, and it was so much fun, but it was so much traveling, so I was exhausted when I got back home, and I fell asleep right after. I ended up skipping dinner like 3 times. But also, there was another reason. The people, and if anyone goes to my school and watches this, just skip ahead a bit. You don't need to see this. But if you don't know me IRL, I'm just going to use an analogy, all right? There is too much bread in the cookie box. I think that works. Anyway, the people that get it, and the people that don't. And that's okay. But the video is done, so keep watching. Hey babes, so once again I'm going to be looking off screen. I do have a script. Let me just pop my water bottle open. Alright, this is a little voice intensive, so I do want some water. So I decided, after reading the comments for my first video, I would make a second video addressing some opinions and perspectives that I read. I'm going to touch on how Annabeth being black will change your personality. Spoilers, it won't. And how I feel about Uncle Rick's recent posts. That being said, I want to start this with a quick disclaimer. I have nothing against Leah, and I hope that she will make an amazing Annabeth, and I am not going to be talking about negatively about her skills or talent in this video. Moving on, thank you for all of your kind words. I want to make it clear that I don't think Leah was casted purely for representation. I personally think that she will be a great Annabeth, and my video was mainly aimed at people who keep calling this amazing representation for people of color, and I was trying to explain that it's not. Having said that, let's get into the comments. Alright, so before I get into our first comment, I just want to say that whenever I mention a comment, it will be popping up right next to me. I hope you guys can read because some of these comments are going to be pretty long. And I'm very happy about that, and thank you everyone for sharing your opinions with me. So, I'm very happy about that. But let's start with Leader Colden X. Pause and read, always feel free. Some of them you're going to have to, but... So, as I said near the beginning of this video, or in the beginning, my issues with her casting has nothing to do with her acting ability. So, watching the trailer, I don't think will have that much of an effect on my opinion, other than maybe what they're going to do with, like, hair and stuff. But my issue is more about the misrepresentation of people of color in the media, and I'm sure that she'll be a great Annabeth, and that's not what I'm worried about. So let's move on to the next comment. Alright, so this comment is by Mari. I'm going to use they, them, because I don't know their pronouns. But the part of this comment I want to address is the PS, so I'm just going to only put that part up on the board. Why did I say the board? I'm not using board. Whatever. School has nailed things into my brain. But I'm going to put it up here, and we will talk about the first paragraph of this comment later. But as I've said in some of the other comments in the last video, if Leah ends up being the perfect Annabeth, like, even if she's amazing, Rick has essentially painted a target on her back by casting her in the role of Annabeth. She'll be receiving a lot of hate, and as far as I know, she already is. And she'll have to grow up with that hate if the series goes along as planned. And if it does go along as planned, then she'll be experiencing that hate for years and years on end, and I'm really scared that it'll have a dangerous effect on her mental health. She's only 12 years old, and will have to go through puberty not only thinking that people hate her, which we all go through, but actually knowing that people will always hate her for something she cannot control. That's why I want to emphasize that I don't have a problem with her as a person or an actress in any way, shape, or form. So, moving on to comment number 3. Now, here's a comment about the actual plot and how it might be affected by this casting decision. A quick thank you to Patrick for this comment. So, go ahead and read. Alright. Thank you, because I almost forgot about this scene. So this was kind of a blow to my Annabeth being black won't change much of anything opinion. And I still believe that Annabeth's race won't change much, but this comment did make me think about it for a while. As for the latter part of this comment, you're completely right. Heroes of Olympus was incredibly diverse, unlike the first series. I think the reason for that was that Uncle Rick was too scared to do the same with the first series, just wanting to get his books published. And I can understand that, as disappointing and as it is. And before I talk about Daddario, I think that's how you say her name, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I was born in August 2005. The first Percy Jackson book was published on June 28th, 2005, meaning I wasn't even born yet. When the first movie was released, I was in kindergarten. I can't really comment on the initial reaction to that casting choice, as I wasn't there for it. But now that I've said that, here's my take. As far as I can tell, the main reason that people were upset about Daddario's casting was because of her age, and I may be wrong, but that was the impression that I got. Of course, people were mad about her hair and eye color, but I was personally the most upset about their ages when I watched the movies for the first time, as it was part of what I really related to when I was able to relate to Percy. And the last sentence of this comment is something that I will mention later, so back to Mari. Alright, so Mari, the same person who left this comment, also shared their full argument with other common arguments found across the internet. Shout out to Mari for leaving this beast of a comment, and let's get into it. Okay, so number 1, pause. Alright. I don't believe that I mentioned Annabeth fighting against the dumb blonde stereotype in my previous video, but it definitely is prevalent throughout the first few books. And Percy did describe Annabeth as being a typical girl from California, which is what I believe this point is referring to. I think the main point to be understood here, though, is that Annabeth's character was not made to fight racial stereotypes or discrimination. And even if they try to fit that in the show, it would be very weird. For example, the scene that I mentioned earlier on in this video, with Patrick's comment. We'll talk more in depth about this on point number 12. So, stay tuned for that. Now on to point number 2, read. Thank you. I don't have much to say on this one other than this. Saying that a stereotype no longer exists, so it doesn't matter, is erasing people's experiences. Stereotypes change the way that people view their peers, and we have continued to do so over the years. Stereotypes don't just vanish in the thin air. Just because you haven't heard it doesn't mean that it isn't still being used. Stereotypes can be very harmful, and they still are. Alright. Number 3. Pause. Read. Thank you. Blackwashing definitely exists, and I really could not have explained it better than Mari if I try. So just read their comment. It's basically what I had to say. Alright, so I'm going to be honest. I'm a little confused about this one. But here's what I have to say. I care. I will care if a character is whitewashed just as much as I will care if a character is being blackwashed. Yes, that's a simple statement, but I just want to put it out there. As for number 5, alright. I don't think that I'm going to make a comment on this one, mainly because I don't know much about what the show chose to do with hair, and I would have to do more research on specifically what the show is choosing to do. But I will be talking about it later, about my personal experience with hair, or my hair specifically, and just how I think the best way to confront this problem would be from the perspective of someone who has hair, like Leah. Alright, so for number 6, I completely agree with this comment. It's a bit of a shorter one, but I'm still with it. People of color are not properly represented in the media, but the first series was never about representation. It was about sacrifice and grief and the struggle of being different from your peers. And I'm not saying there shouldn't have been people of color in the series, so in the first series, so don't get me wrong, but that's not just not what it was about. I'm going to assume that the books in question here are the Heroes of Olympus series. While there were more people of color, their backstories didn't have much to do with their race, other than Hazel, obviously. I personally like that because I don't think a character's entire story should be about their race. There's more to people than where they're from. It can play a huge part in their identity, but it shouldn't be their main personality trait. Similar to how a story with a gay or trans main character shouldn't be all about them coming out, or homophobia or transphobia, even though those are relevant issues. People are more than their sexuality, race, or gender, even though those things are important. Okay. Number 7, this is also a long one, so take your time and read. I don't think that Annabeth's character will change that much, because I don't think they will try and change anything other than maybe her dad's skin tone, which, now that I think about it, won't be necessary because of the way that Athena's children are born. Although, they may change Frederick's race so the people who haven't read the books won't be confused. Which leads me to another point that I want to make. Not everyone who watches the show will have read the books. Simple as that. And the producers need to keep that in mind. So even though we know how Athena children are born, us readers, that won't be mentioned yet, so it will just seem like a plot hole to people who haven't read all the books. So I believe the show is probably going to have Frederick Chase be black instead of trying to explain that Athena kids just pop out of Athena's head. Even though Annabeth could very well be black while having a white dad. Just depending on how Athena imagined her. As for Magnus, I don't know what will happen. I have no idea if this goes amazingly well for the 10 years or whatever this is going to go, or whatever. I don't know what they're planning to do with all his other series. If they do make Frederick black, like I theorized, then Magnus might be changed as well, though I sincerely doubt it. Just because there is definitely some mentioning about his race, as far as I can remember. I don't think I've reread that series in a bit, though. It's like, I'm not sure if I mentioned yet, but I have really, oh, no, I will mention it soon, but I have really lost the motivation to read paper books right now, so I haven't reread any of the Percy Jackson stuff anytime recently. So Frederick could be black and Magnus could still stay white. They could just have Frederick be adopted, but that gets complicated. So as a last thing for this point, I don't think I would say Annabeth in the show will just end up being like an OC, because I truly don't think it would change her personality. At least not that much. Maybe some background stuff, like I just mentioned, but I don't think it would change her actual personality. Well, at least I hope so. On to number 8. Alright, so, read. Thank you. I think personality and appearance are both important, and while I believe that personality does matter more, appearance matters a lot too. It's complicated. The first time Annabeth is mentioned in the series, Percy describes her appearance as that as a typical Californian girl with curly blonde hair akin to that of a princess, which is super fucking romantic. And if you gave me 8 hours to talk about Percabeth, I would. It was like the biggest, it was the first main ship that I was ever a part of, and it is still very dear to my heart. But this is where you have to think about the casting from the producer's perspective. As I mentioned earlier, while most of the show's audience will be people who have read the books, there will be people who haven't, and them learning the personality of Annabeth and learning about her character will be more important than the people who have read the books being able to recognize her. It would be more, basically what I'm trying to say, it's more important to make the character of Annabeth universal for all viewers than it is to have her look a certain way to appease only a group of viewers. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. At least that's what I think, or what their perspective should be from a business standpoint. But not a lot of people are taking a step back to look at the big picture. They're just stuck on what they wanted out of the show. And I want to make it clear that I'm not insulting the person who wrote this comment or anyone who has been wanting a blonde Annabeth. I just think that some people should really take a step back and look and think about this from not only a viewer's perspective, but a creator's perspective as well. As for number 9, this one is long, so read. I do agree that there is little to no chance that Leah was the only person that was suited to play Annabeth, but if she was truly the best, then we'll be able to tell once the show comes out. And if she isn't, we won't harass that 12-year-old girl, or 13, or however old she'll be by the time it comes out. We aren't going to harass her. We will ask producers. We will calmly, Dumbledore said, sorry. We will express our disappointment online peacefully. We won't go like Voltron fandom. We won't do that. Luckily, I joined the fandom after people sent cupcakes with glass in them to producers. So, like, I joined in, like, 2020, so, like, whew, yikes. Side note, if you want a video about me trash-talking Voltron, please do. Because I love some of the characters. I have a lot of shit to say. That was off track. But where was I? Oh yeah. We will express our disappointment to Rick. We will not harass any of the characters or actors in the show. Especially not the children. Thank you. But I do agree with the point stated in this comment. Even if the person wasn't perfect for the role, there would be time to give them lessons and help them throughout the filming. But I still think that the chemistry between the actors playing Percy and Annabeth, or Walker and Leah, would still need to be there, because even though they don't get along in the first book, sometimes you just aren't able to get along with someone and you aren't able to grow into a friendship. So I think it would be important that the two actors clicked, even if they wouldn't have to yet. I skipped number 10 because I didn't think it was entirely relevant to the points I myself am making, but here's number 11. Read. Okay, I'm not about to lie. The part of quotations almost gave me a stroke when I tried to read it, but I think I get what the person is getting at here. Again, I'm not trying to be rude, but personally, I do agree with this. I do think that Rick was too scared to have a black main character, and you can see proof of that in his later series when in Heroes of Olympus, he was able to bring more representation for people of color, and in the Magnus Chase series, he brought even more representation for gender and even religion. And I don't think he was hopping on the bandwagon. I just think he was too scared in the beginning, and now that he isn't, he's making more of what he wanted to in the first place. And I wholeheartedly agree with the last sentence of this comment. Rick is human and is allowed to be afraid of other people's opinion. And I feel like the fandom and the community forgets that sometimes. For number 12, I don't think I can agree with this comment that you just need to read because it's extremely long. Have fun with that. So I guess if you're here, you like to read because you've read the book. Anyway, I can't really agree with this comment because there's just so much unknown about the future of the series. We don't actually know what they're going to do with Hazel's character or even Annabeth's, and we're just making assumptions. So, yes, this isn't related to what I was just talking about, but Hazel could probably beat Annabeth in a fight if she used her powers. But if she didn't, Annabeth would win. Now, that had nothing to do with what I was just saying. I wanted to say it anyway, because I love Annabeth, and as much as I love Hazel, Annabeth was the OG, so that sounded so toxic. I'm sorry. I love Hazel. That's all I gotta say. But I think this, what I'm about to say, is important. Hazel's character was not made to fight racial discrimination. Yes, it's true that she faced racial discrimination, as shown in the flashbacks to her earlier life, but she never fought it, as far as I can remember. That's not what her character is about, and implying that it is doesn't sit right with me. She wasn't some, like, big protester, and she wasn't, like, fighting back to her bullies. That's not what her character is about. And I really don't think they're going to try and make Annabeth's character fight racial discrimination, even though she has a black actress. Like I said before, people's race is not their entire personality or identity. Just because there's a black character does not mean that their storyline is going to be all about fighting racial discrimination. A character can be black without fighting racism, and just like a character can be a woman without trying to dismantle the patriarchy. So, this comment did not entirely sit well with me, so I got a little frustrated there. Alright, so I skipped number 13 as it didn't make that much sense to me, but here's number 14. I would love to see much more Beckendorf, I really would. But I don't think that's the main point of his character. I think the point of Beckendorf was to make us fall in love with him and then yank him out of our grasp. Sort of like a condensed version of Cedric Diggory. And I think there's some really good parallels here. Cedric was the first casualty of the Second War, that Harry was there for, and it made everything so much more real for him and triggered a darker turn with the series. And similarly, Beckendorf was the first casualty of war for Percy, and it made everything much more real for him and triggered a darker turn within the series. And yes, I know that Bianca and Zoe died earlier, but I don't really consider their deaths to be because of the war. In that term, Zoe is kind of iffy, but specifically Bianca is definitely not a casualty of war. She was just very unlucky, and I was about to say selfish, but that's a whole nother debate that I don't want to get into because some people will hate me, so I won't. As for number 15, I don't think Talia should be cast as a person of color either, as she is Jason's biological sister, and Jason is white, just like his mother. At least I remember her being white. And I say Talia. Do you say Thalia? I say Talia, though I know a Thalia in real life. I don't know. Weird, huh? We are now at number 16, and I think that this is the point that I disagree with the most. Percy should not and cannot be black, and here's my reasoning why. It just wouldn't make any fucking sense. Even though his race was never specified, there was no way he would have gotten away with the shit that he's done previously if he was a person of color. He would not have been able to go to so many different schools after allegedly committing crimes at each one if he was a person of color. If a black kid had dropped his school into a shark tank or blown up a bus with a cannon or blown up the arch, he would have been arrested and considered a serious danger. Now, for the arch, I do know that he was subject of a nationwide manhunt. Jeez. But once they found him and they were like, oh no, he was manipulated. He was fighting back against his captor. If I was a black kid, as unfortunate as it was, they'll probably be like, oh, the kid was double-crossed, instead of saying he was manipulated the whole time. See what I'm trying to get at here? But, to be honest, I don't really want to continue with that topic, because it's a different discussion that I don't really want to get into right now, because as silly as it sounds, it makes me pretty sad, and I don't like being sad, and I'm already sad enough, which I think I will mention a little bit later, but I promise it will be relevant. But in conclusion, even though his race wasn't specified, it's pretty clear to me that he was not meant to be black, though it would be a pretty cool reference to Percy Green from the landmark case of McDonnell v. Green, and if you want to look that up, I highly encourage you to. It was about Percy Green, I think Percy Green II, and his friend, that I can't remember the name of for the life of me, and I truly apologize to this dude. They both staged an act of civil disobedience during the building of the arch, so go check that out. That's really cool. Now, for the last part of this comment, I'm not going to add my input, as I think it's stated perfectly here. The only thing I will say is this. Leah does not deserve your anger. She has done nothing wrong. If you're angry or disappointed, direct that at Uncle Rick. And with that perfect segue, let's get on to the next section of this video. Alright, so, next section, and this is going to be about Uncle Rick and how myself and some others feel about his recent posts and actions. To start, here are some quotes from the Camp Half-Blood subreddit, and, just realized I don't have credit for this, so, sorry. My bad. So, here, read. I totally agree with this. I have no idea why Rick is acting the way he is. And it's not like... Okay, I want to make it clear real quick. To be fair, Rick wrote the books. He can do what he wants. He'll just be disappointing, like, millions of people, so... But I completely agree with this comment. A lot of the details aren't completely necessary, but still matter to the fans, and as for Annabeth's eyes, I am about to get into why them being gray is important. Alright, so I'm just going to go down a list of why Annabeth's eyes being gray is important. So, pause. That's what number we're on. Okay, so here are 4 paragraphs. I will mention which paragraph coincides with what I'm about to say. But for the first paragraph, before I start my list, yes, like, great example. Daniel Radcliffe could not use green contacts because he was allergic to them. And just disclaimer for anyone who's about to say some stupid shit. The reason why everyone was mad about his eyes being different color wasn't because of the contacts. It was because the whole thing was him having the same colored eyes as his mom. And then the mom actress had different colored eyes. That's what people were upset. Not because of the actual eye color. Thank you. But Alright. The whole way he was saying, like, oh, well, in mythology, it never meant gray eyes anyway, so it doesn't matter. But you didn't write mythology. You wrote a book series for young adults. At least I think it's young adult. If it's not, I am clinging to my childhood, so. Which I'm still in. Whatever. But yeah. He's just acting like a lot of the small details don't matter. And I find that a little bit weird. But let's get on to my list. Number 1, which coincides with the second paragraph here. The eyes are just mentioned a fuck ton. Her eyes have always been one of the first things that people notice about her, claiming that people can see the intelligence behind her eyes, like she's planning a battle strategy right there and then, or sizing you up. But what says the most is her eyes are akin. The gray color of her eyes is akin to a storm. For number 2, this is coinciding with paragraph number 3 here, which I'll show. They're just like Athena's. It's how Percy recognizes her when she's posing as the tour guide, and it's how the readers recognize Athena for who she is, and she is the only person outside of the cabin to have those specific gray, stormy eyes. That also coincides with paragraph 4, I just realized. And yes, it would be a fucking awesome moment to, like, have Percy have a quick flashback of Annabeth's eyes. Or staring into them because he's in love. I love Elizabeth. Oh my god. Sorry. And him looking the tour guide in the eyes and just light bulb moment, you know? That would be so cool. But lastly, number 3, this is one that I personally thought of, and is a plot point from the book. Medusa. Or Auntie M. Or your classic New Jersey aunt. Medusa doesn't like Annabeth because she recognizes that she's a child of Athena. How? Because of her eyes. She mentions that she used to know someone with eyes just like hers. She mentions that she used to know someone's eyes just like hers because that is the part that is most like Athena. It's the eyes. And her saying that was what made Annabeth suspicious of her, along with all the other sus things she was saying. But that was the one part that started to creep her out, and when she was like, something's wrong, because Annabeth knew the significance of her eye color. But the main reason why Medusa didn't like Annabeth was because she looked so much like Athena, and she's in the books to look the most like Athena out of all of her siblings. And the eye specifically, it was how she was able to figure out that Annabeth was a child of Athena. Which brings you to the whole thing, if Annabeth is the one that looks most like Athena, are they going to try and make Athena black? Which dives the whole thing into racism, because Athena is a Greek god and goddess, and whew, I don't want to get into that. But, lastly, for this part, read. I think this is going to be the most important thing I have said this entire video, other than don't harass Leah. Other than that. If Rick had just explained from the very beginning that he wasn't going to try and make everything as accurate as possible, I think that most people wouldn't be upset as they are now. It's true that we have been seeing and viewing these appearances as canon for years and years on end, and it's not fair for Uncle Rick to expect us to just flip our perspectives like a switch. And if someone had just explained to the fandom early on what to expect, I feel like the fallout would have been much smaller. And I know I basically just restated that quote, but I just wanted to say it in my own words as well because I still think it's important. Alright, so this section is going to be about different opinions about the casting itself, so let's get right into it. I'm going to be honest, when I first got this comment, I thought it was by some uneducated asshole on the internet, and I was 100% proven wrong when I read their reply. Might be. My bad. I'm a judgmental asshole, I'm going to be honest. Wow. Quick disclaimer. Or not a disclaimer, just heads up. I do curse a lot. I curse a lot in real life. If you don't like that, this might not be the channel for you. Yeah. I did not expect myself to start cursing in these videos, but I probably will, so sorry. Here's a comment, read that, thank you. Hopefully you can understand why I was confused. Must be nice. Here's our second comment, much longer, amazing follow-up, so, this is a perfect explanation of my feelings towards the casting. A character should be cast in the same lane as their book character. For example, let's use the show Heartstopper. If you don't know, Heartstopper just came out on Netflix recently on April 22nd. I was so fucking excited for it. Alright, so I've been reading Heartstopper on Webtoon for a long time. I love Heartstopper. I've yet to read all the other books because I'm broke as fuck. But, other than that, I have read every single page of the webtoon there is. What else did I want to say? Right. So this is just... Heartstopper is known for being very diverse and having a really amazing LGBTQ representation. Oh, I should probably say this now. I am part of the LGBTQ community, or LGBTQIA, specifically the A. So if you are a homophobe, if you are transphobic, if you are a bitch, get out, leave. Thank you. You know what? See if I can get this in camera here. Flag! Yay! Oh, there we go. Flag. Alright, I'm Arrow Ace. So, did not expect to make a coming out video, but if you're an asshole, get the fuck out. Thank you. That was random, but it's good that I said it. Let's see. Alright, so for example, Heartstopper, the actual casting. So, Elle is a trans girl in the comic, and her race, she is Egyptian, but I completely understand. Well, let me come back in a second. Elle in the show was cast by Yasmin Finney, I believe is her last name, and she herself is also a trans actress, a trans woman, which is absolutely amazing to have a trans woman play a trans woman, which is something you never see. Not only that, they're both trans women of color, and while she is an Egyptian, that is 100% understandable, just because of how much backlash trans people get in Egypt. So it's 100% understandable. But if you want a better example from Heartstopper, look no farther than Tao. Now, I do not know how to pronounce Tao's last name, and I am not going to try, because I don't want to mess it up. But Tao in the books is the only straight friend, which is hilarious. He is fucking in love with Elle. Sorry. Anyway, spoilers. Oopsies. But Tao is of Chinese descent. He was born in Britain, I believe. He is a British boy with Chinese descent. He was cast by he was played by William Gao, who is a British boy with Chinese descent. Yeah, so that's just proof that there is such thing as perfect casting, and it is possible. So, yeah. But also, I am really bummed about the hair thing. Hair dye, as far as I know, which is not a lot, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like he would have to bleach his hair like Tom Felton. Rest in peace to his hairline. Anyway, yes, I want to say you explained your point much better than you did with your first comment. So, my apologies. My bad. Oh, back to the hair dye isn't a big deal. I think it would be a big deal if you tried to dye Leah's hair, just because then you would have to use bleach. But what if, crazy idea here, you got a black woman out there to do some wigs? What if you let black women do people's hair? Crazy idea. Just saying. And if you're confused, start looking up about the discrimination in that community. Yeah, back to Constantina. I don't have much to say on the beginning of this comment, but I have something to say about the latter half. I'll make sure you read it. You're right. it's not racist to be disappointed over this casting decision. And to the people that are calling people expressing their disappointment racist, fuck you! I myself was called racist in the Instagram comment section of the casting announcement for expressing my own opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but they aren't entitled to hurt people with it. So the people that are directing hate and harassing Leah are not in the same boat as people who are just expressing their own disappointment. So don't feel bad for being disappointed. The people who are harassing this actress have crossed a line. And as long as you aren't being flat out hateful, you're fine. Alright, so our next commenter is Dan. I'm not going to try and pronounce the last name, but, Reed. Alright, so I'm ashamed to admit this, but I haven't read Daughter of the Deep. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I've really lost my motivation towards reading actual physical books, and I just haven't been able to gain that motivation back yet. So I'm starting to work on that. But, regardless, I'm starting to get the impression that Rick does not care as much about the small things like most of the fans do. The fans care because of the small things that make this community tick, and I've already said this earlier, but I really do think they should dye Walker's hair, although I don't know where I stand on the topic of Annabeth's hair. The book, I said earlier that I would get into how my opinion of what the hair could be, just from logical standpoint, and that's what I'm going to do now. The book described Annabeth as having blonde, curly hair like a princess, which to me means natural hair that is dyed blonde, but there are a few problems with that. If you're not, as for the actress, damage, bleach, ouch. But other than that, just show-wise, that might have worked when Annabeth was at camp, but it would not have worked when on the quest, at least not without serious consequences for her hair. I myself have very curly hair. Here's a picture. And now that's called shrinkage, for people who don't know about black hair, or black people's hair. I have never had an actual haircut. I have only had like dead ends, split ends trimmed off. So that is over a decade and a half worth of growth shrunk because I got wet after a shower, or during my shower. So, again, it has nothing to do with what I just said, but crazy, right? Sorry, I'm just trying to delay what I'm about to say because it's nerve-wracking for me. Anyway, there was a point in my life where I hadn't washed my hair properly for months due to me being deep in a depressive episode. I almost had to shave my head, and that was without going to the underworld and back. But my solution was getting my hair braided. Or actually I got twists first. Here's a picture of my first time. Same style. I don't know if that'll show up on camera. I highly doubt it. But, yeah. Well, I got twists first, like I just said. And this is a version of them. It lasts for 6 weeks, or rather, it looks good for 6 weeks. Then you can have your perimeter and your part redone, which would be, for me, along here and along the outside of my head, right? It's a productive hairstyle and would definitely hold up on the quest. Long story short, I'm indecisive here. Either you keep the curls and be unrealistic, which might look weird if you have Grover and Percy's hair messed up, like looking all tousled and stuff, or lose the curls and be realistic, what would actually be good to keep on a quest. Also, I do want to just say, quick stuff about Grover, because I love Grover. Curly hair, please, please. I know we're gonna lose curly hair Grover, and that makes me very sad, but it's okay. It's okay. I won't go cry about it later. But I do want to say, no, I wasn't like serious about this, but I think it would have been fucking hilarious. And I saw this somewhere, and it fucking killed me. So you know how usually everyone, including me, hates when teenagers are played by like 30-year-olds, right? What if they did that for Grover? Because that would be fucking hilarious. So for people who have read the first book know that Grover is 32 when that first book comes out. Because, like, chronologically it's 32. But, you know what I mean. Biologically, there is a word, he's like 12. So, I think it would have been hilarious for Grover to be played by a really obvious 30-year-old. And then Percy goes, "You're 30? What?" And Grover's just like, "Yeah." Like, he's described to having like a slight beard. Like, I just think it would be fucking hilarious. It would make like no sense otherwise, but I still think it would be fucking hilarious and would be a great bit. If someone wants to make like a comic sketch of that, please fucking do. But that was totally off topic. Anyway, for the eyes wise, I do think contacts would work for Percy, or CGI to get that like extra unnatural intensity of like the sea, if that makes sense. But ooh, and Sally's eyes, because hers changed color. He says hers changed color as they got to the beach, which is really sweet. But I think that would need CGI as well. But or maybe did he say they began to brighten? Something like that. Anyway, and it's something that would still need CGI to pull off. But for Annabeth, I'm kinda at a standstill. On one hand, I think, okay, just came up with a solution. For everyday, like, just random scenes, contacts. CGI when it's close up. So they can, like, make storms show. Not like literal storms, but do you get what I mean? I hope you get what I mean. But as for the end of this comment, I am still confident in Leah's capabilities, and I am trying to stay hopeful. Alright, so this will be the last comment for this video, and I want to give this commenter a bit of a shout out. As the second comment of this video said in their first paragraph, which was by Mari, people have been waiting for a book accurate Annabeth, and one of those people are Kate. Is Kate. Is. I encourage you to go check out her videos. She is from Australia and genuinely seems so sweet, so go check her out. This is her channel. Her full cancer story is up on her page, and she will mention it a little bit in her comment, so if that does trigger you, feel free to click out. This will be the last comment in the last part of this video. But let's get into her comment. Alright, so this was a long one, so go ahead and pause and read. But as for the comment, I myself have a rough medical history. One of my surgeries excluded me from activities at school, and oh, actually, that was the one that gave me, I don't know if you can see it. Hold on, let me see if I can. Sometimes when I do that, it's more clear, but right here, and I'm sure you can tell when I speak, my lip up here is not the same, is not the right size. That is because I was born with a, you know what, I'm not going to get into that. If you want to hear about that, that's a whole nother story. And bonus, if you want to hear about that, you get to hear about my crazy adoption story as well. So, there's that. But, like I said, I myself have some rough medical history. One of my surgeries excluded me from activities at school in 4th grade. I had to miss recess, which was awful. Actually, traumatizing. That was a joke. I did have to miss recess. I was not able to walk properly for a bit, and I missed the first, like, maybe week of 4th grade. That surgery was 2 days after my birthday as well, so that fucking sucked. But I took solace in my books more than I ever had before, and I already was deep in my books a lot, but it just kind of solidified it for me. And I myself can be quite forgetful, and which is why I have a whole script for my video, but sometimes my mouth works faster than my brain, and I end up saying things that sound stupid, or I didn't mean to say that, or I haven't thought through. Or here's an example that my friends love to bring up constantly. When I was in Algebra 1, which was 7th grade for me, our teacher, and this was a year I was so tired, I was just out, right? And he goes, for the whole class, and we all know what 4 to the 3rd is, right? like 4 to the third power, and my dumbass brain goes, and everyone yells, and I go, 12! Now, for those of us in math, who know math, that's not correct. At all. So, that's just like an example of me being a dumbass. But while I haven't been bullied specifically for stuff like that, I have been like consistently been called the dumb friend a lot. But even though I know it's a joke, so I don't get butthurt over everything, it can pile up a bit. So being able to have a role model who, even though she didn't look like me, still had ADHD and was smart was really important to me. But I didn't need her to look like me. I was just happy she was there in the first place. But I can't even imagine how it would feel to be hoping and waiting for your role model to come to life on the screen, only to have it be crushed by this casting decision. It must be truly devastating, and I'm really sorry that you have to go through that disappointment. I've never really found any good fictional or real people that I could ever consider a role model, and growing up like that is hard, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. That feeling of being lost and alone in your own struggles because you don't see anyone else who's had them. It's hard, and to be honest, to put it fucking sucks. That's all I can say. And this is the second part, so read that. I know that I mentioned it early on in this video, but I just want to emphasize that just because you're disappointed with a casting decision does not make you racist. If your reasoning behind being disappointed is that you don't want some nigger to be Annabeth, yes, you're racist. But if you're disappointed because you're expecting someone different and this is what you got, that's not racist, especially in this case. I'm glad that I could help bring you some comfort, but I don't think I know enough about Leah to say that she would have been the perfect Hazel or even the perfect Annabeth. And even if she would have been the perfect Hazel, she would be too old by the time Hazel came into play in the series. I definitely agree with you, though. I don't think Rick truly understands how important the little details are to his fans because his wording recently has not been the best. It's like he's downplaying how important the books and his characters have been to people, or maybe he just didn't realize it. For me, Percy Jackson, just the series, was like, no, I don't want to say a savior because that would be too dramatic, but like a crutch, I guess. Not only was it my first introduction to being into fandoms or being in a big community, it helped me. I can't explain it. It's just really special to me, and it's special to a lot of people out there. Hell, it's even like giving people millions of followers online. Like people have TikTok accounts as cosplayers, stuff like that. People have made careers out of this shit. Like, Percy Jackson is special to everybody who reads it. Unless you hate it, in which case, why are you here? But anyways, for me, it was important because I saw a smart character with ADHD in the media, or I saw someone like Percy who was struggling finding out who he was. And for you, it was someone being smart even though they were blonde, or for other people it might be the dyslexia. And there's a whole mess of different things that people could relate to. And I truly believe that everyone can find something in the Percy Jackson universe to connect to. And I really think he needs to understand that for this show to go well. Thank you for leaving your comment, Kate, and once again, I'm really happy that I was able to bring you some comfort. So don't forget to go look for her channel, alright? There will be a link in the description. Alright, so that concludes this video. I want to say thank you to everybody who watched my last video, who left a comment, who even interacted with that video, because you gave me motivation to make this one. Before I thank some people, I just want to say my next video will be about whitewashing the gacha community, which if you don't know what that is, you have Google. Although if there are more developments about the casting and stuff like that, I will make a video about that. Put some requests down in the comments if you want me to do a video on something. I'll try to see what I can do. I'm even making my own gacha reaction video for Heartstopper, which I love and I will gladly talk for about. I've read everything that's on Webtoon. I think I said that already, but and I'm making the video so I can learn, like, just sift through the excuses that people make in the gacha community. Like, that's not what I want to talk about now. I'll get into it later in another video. But that reaction video, I think, will be coming out first, and I already have all the characters done. I just really need to, and I got all my videos. I just need to put them all together. Boop, doop, 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 da, boop, da, boop. Alright, now onto my special thank yous. Okay, first I want to say a big special thank you to Mari, because your comment was not only amazing, it was really well thought out, and it really gave me something to talk about, so thank you. Once again, I want to thank Kate. Your comment was really special for me, so thank you. Once again, go check them out. I think I already said it, but there'll be a link to their channel in the description. Also down there, you will find a link tree that has my socials in it, and some links to support Black Lives Matter. I don't currently have a specific link to a charity or something like that for Ukraine refugees, but I will have a link to a CNN article in that link tree that will lead you to different ways that you can help, and will help you learn more about ways you can help. Alright, I just wanted to add this in. I'm sure that you have heard about the school shooting in Texas, and my heart goes out to those families. In my link tree, or at least in the description, I don't know if I'll be able to fit it into my link tree with the other links I have in there. I will have a link to two different articles, one saying just what we know so far about the shooting, and the other being helping you find out ways that you can help. Once again, I just want to say my heart goes out to those families, and I hope that you are getting the support that you need, and I hope that people watching this video, or just people out there, are also helping as well. So, there's that. Also, onto another thing I mentioned in the video about discrimination for black hair in the Hollywood industry, stuff like that. I will have maybe some links in the description, I'm not sure, but if I don't, just go ahead and look up black hair in Hollywood, something like that. Black people's hair in Hollywood, something along those lines, and you'll be able to find plenty of articles about women wearing wigs or not wearing wigs, or how people with natural hair has not really been shown and stuff like that, or how there's just not enough people who know how to style black hair. So things like that, if you're interested in that. But other than that, I think I said what I wanted to say. So yeah, bye. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I can't believe I just fucking said that. That is, that doesn't make me feel good. Have a great day, or whatever the fuck, and bye, babes.